О, пахне стіну. Та церква вже, мабуть, не працює. Кажуть, що той тур буде на башню.
Explanation as to why it's open to the public. Over the last 20 years, this building has undergone a great deal of restoration works. It started when the bells, particularly the headstocks and the bearings of the bells, were getting in a very poor state of repair, and something needed to be done with them. So the opportunity was taken to have the bells removed. They were large steel beams were put in place. Historic England were becoming concerned that because this is a Grade 1 listed building, of course they're very engaged with it. They were concerned that the fabric of the tower walls was beginning to suffer from the swinging motion of the bells and also the reverberation from the sound of the bells. So they recommended that these steels were put in. You'll notice that the steels are joined in the middle here. The reason for that being that they were brought into the building through that window there, which was removed for the work to be done. And of course, they had to be slotted into the wall, so they needed to have protection and also for the purposes of a watchtower. It was built in 1270. And 1270 was a turbulent time in England and Wales, and of course we're sort of border country here going over into the Welsh borders. There were also quite a number of castles built along the Welsh borders at that time too. And there was a succession of kings who weren't particularly powerful. Henry III, followed by Edward I and Edward II. Edward II ended his days being murdered in Berkeley Castle by the barons of the day, and so it was quite uncertain and turbulent times through here. And following the death of Edward II, then Edward III became king. He was a completely different character. He was a very strong monarch. He soon brought the country to peace and exerted his authority, and so things settled down, and he reigned for a great many years. In fact, I think he's possibly one of our longest reigning monarchs. But obviously following that, and no more hostilities, then this building was not so vital as a place of protection or a watchtower. And the then Lord of the Manor, he instructed this wooden spire put on top of the building, probably as a mark of his authority, something of a vanity project, and also it is quite a striking landmark in the area. So the spire went on, and that was in 1320. And then the next major thing that happened to this building was in 1530, a chapel was built on the east wall, to the east. And that chapel was dedicated to St. Mary. The parish church is dedicated to St. Peter and St. Paul, and that chapel was dedicated to St. Mary. And a priest was employed solely to say prayers to St. Mary during certain intervals in the day. That was all his duties were, was just to do that. There was a parish rector who oversaw the church, and he lived at the west end of the village. And then following on from that, in 1530, the building to the east was extended to become a two-storey building. That's why there's the two roof lines in the wall out there. The ground floor then became used as a village schoolroom, and the upper floor became a residence for the curate, and also it housed the parish office. Back in those days, that was something of an issue for us, because our building contractors, our principal building contractors, could find no source of oak shingles in Britain. Nobody was preparing cleft oak shingles. And so it was thought that they would have to be imported from the continent, because in France and Germany they do still use oak shingles quite a bit. And so we thought that, that they would have to be imported. However, during the process of the works, when the building contractors stripped off all the old oak shingles, they discovered that the structural timbers right in the peak of the spire were in nowhere near such a good state of repair as had been anticipated. And so all the funding that we had available to reshingle the building was absorbed in just repairing the structure. Some of it is good as what was on there before. So it worked out well in the long run. One concession that historic England did make was that one modern feature, they would allow the use of stainless steel nails on this occasion, and these nails have got what are called annular rings in them, which considerably increase the grip of the nails. So there should be no problems with corrosion, and also the age of it. And they commissioned Lampeter University from down in Pembrokeshire. They specialise in the study of timber buildings. They're the leading university in the British Isles for studying timber buildings. And they got Lampeter to come up and pay a visit. And one of the things they did was they took core samples out of the beams. That's a hole there from where they took one. And that is an example of what they removed. They went all over the building removing samples like that, which they'd taken back to Lampeter. By reading the growth rings in those samples that they'd taken, they can work out from that when the trees started to grow, at what age they were felled, and apparently now they've even perfected a chemical analysis of the timber, which within a reasonable area they can work out where the trees were actually grown.
Gosh.
It's most likely that all these timbers would have either been fairly local to the parish or come from the Forest of Dean, because of course in those days the Forest of Dean was largely oak woods. And talking about varieties of timber, this floor that we're stood on is actually elm, and it is the original. It's said to be the original floor to the building. So it dates all the way. These slots here are because bats like narrow spaces to get in during the daytime. And there's numerous of those in the higher levels of the spire.
Fantastic.
Are you local?
Sunshine. Wow. Oh wow, that's phenomenal. Structure. Gosh.
Oh wow.
Studying buildings not only in the British Isles but also throughout Europe, and when they first came up here and looked up at that, they were absolutely awestruck with what they saw, to the extent that they think this building is probably unique.
Yeah.
They think that there's no other building in Europe as being
In the world.
constructed in this fashion.
Yeah, I believe that.
And it is potentially dowels through the joints that were put in 1320. Came through here at that time, and Victorians judged that it needed a bit of ironwork to strengthen it up. The other addition that the Victorians made to the building, if you look up, you'll see that there's horizontal planks all the way around on the outside, and that was added by the Victorians, and that is thought to have added to the strength and also helped to preserve the building considerably. One thing that when the restoration works were going on and the building contractors were absolutely intrigued by was that this wooden spire does not appear to be held onto the walls by anything. It sits there purely by its own weight. And they said that is because it's 8-sided, as it tapers it offers less resistance to the wind, and the majority of the weight of the building is in the lower levels.
Yeah.
Sometimes it worked it all out.
Yeah.
It worked it all out.
Well, this is Lampeter said it would probably have all been assembled at ground level originally. Then they'd have dismantled it, brought it up marked all the joints, dismantled it, brought it up one timber at a time, and put it back together. And it's they say it is sort of like a series of cubes, one on top of another, diminishing in size as they go up.
Very, very, I think, like it.
Released the cockcrow and it was abseiled down into the churchyard, and that old weathercock is now on display down in the chancel in the church. That was made in 1696 in Ross-on-Wye. The ground floor start pulling the bell ropes, and they increase the rocking motion of the bells until the bell is turned mouth upwards.
Okay.
And they're kept in that position. They move from that position to that position when they're being rung. This piece of wood here strikes against this slider, which the bell ringer can tell when the bell is at its point of ringing, and it's maintained in that position when it's rung. And there's 6 bell ringers, they stand in a circle.